What if the king's greatest secret was inside his cup? Behind locked doors, a trembling ruler lifted wine before facing a court that watched everything. Welcome to the origin of today. The cup was not just celebration, it was protection. The remedy was not just medicine, it was control. And behind the throne, fear often wore a calm face. From far away, medieval power looked unbreakable. Crowns, castles, banners, guards, and ceremonies made rulers seem almost untouchable. But inside the palace, power was much less solid. A ruler could command armies, yet still be trapped by pain, suspicion, sleepless nights, and the pressure of every decision. That is the hidden side of medieval rule, the body behind the crown. A feast could become a political trap. A marriage could become a weapon of alliance. A wrong word could become a rebellion. And every morning the person on the throne had to appear strong, even when the body underneath was exhausted, ill, injured, or afraid. So rulers reached for what their world offered them: wine, herbal mixtures, calming remedies, court medicine, and in some places, powerful treatments connected to the poppy. But here is the strange part. These were not always seen as escape. Often they were seen as survival. Wine was everywhere in elite medieval life. It filled royal tables, religious rituals, diplomatic meetings, and medical recipes. In some places, it was seen as more reliable than ordinary water, easier to store, and deeply tied to rank. But at a royal table, wine did more than fill a cup. It sent a message. The finest wine showed wealth. The public toast showed confidence. The steady hand holding the cup showed control. And for a ruler, control was everything. Because one visible weakness could invite whispers, one bad night could become a rumor, one shaking hand could make enemies feel brave. That is why the cup mattered. It softened pain. It eased tension. It helped rulers perform strength in rooms where weakness could be dangerous. Imagine a king after battle, sitting in a cold chamber while messengers wait outside. His body aches, his counsel is divided, his enemies are listening for signs of decline. He cannot appear broken. It is about fear, authority. He cannot say, "I am not ready." So the ritual begins. A cup, a remedy, a physician nearby, a servant watching the door. Then the ruler returns to the room looking steady enough to rule. But this is where the story becomes darker. Medieval medicine did not understand the body the way modern science does. Illness was often explained through balance, temperament, heat, cold, dryness, moisture, divine will, and inherited medical traditions. A court physician did not simply treat symptoms. He tried to restore order inside the ruler's body because the ruler's body was tied to the image of the realm. If the king looked unstable, the kingdom felt unstable. If the king looked weak, rivals could become bold. So medicine became political. That is why wine appeared so often in remedies. It could carry herbs, it could warm the body in medical theory, it could be prescribed, blessed, shared, or folded into daily court routine. A cup on the table looked ordinary, but inside a palace, ordinary objects often carried hidden power. Poppy-based court remedies entered this world through medicine, trade, and older healing traditions. They belonged to a wider culture that mixed plants, minerals, spices, beliefs, and authority. To medieval people, these treatments could seem mysterious, rare, and almost royal in themselves. They moved through merchants, scholars, physicians, and apothecaries. A rare remedy did more than treat the body. It proved that the ruler had access to knowledge most people would never touch. But the real reason rulers relied on these comforts was not luxury. It was pressure. A ruler's life was not just banquets and crowns. It was councils, petitions, religious duties, military planning, public appearances, marriage negotiations, family rivalries, and the constant fear of betrayal. All of it pressed against one human nervous system. So today we might call it stress, trauma, chronic pain, or anxiety. In the medieval palace, it was often hidden behind ceremony. The crown did not remove fear. It made fear more dangerous to show. And that is the answer hidden inside the opening question. The weakness rulers hid in their cups was not only illness, it was the terrifying need to look unbreakable. Wine and calming remedies helped them cross the distance between private suffering and public authority. They did not rely on them only because they were careless or indulgent. Many relied on them because ruling demanded a performance the human body could not always sustain. But this is only half the story. Once a remedy becomes part of power, it does not stay only medicine. It becomes habit, it becomes ritual, it becomes a quiet dependency of the court itself. The royal physician gained influence. The apothecary became important. Imported ingredients became symbols of prestige. And the private chamber became a place where politics and medicine touched. A ruler's health could decide who gained access, who gave advice, and who controlled the story told to the outside world. If the king slept poorly, someone knew. If he needed stronger remedies, someone knew. If he could not appear in public, everyone began to guess. And in medieval politics, guessing could be dangerous. So courts protected the image. They turned illness into rumor, pain into silence, and treatment into ritual. A ruler might be surrounded by servants, yet deeply alone with his own body. The chamber could be full, but the suffering private. That is why this story is not only about wine or medicine. It is about fear, authority, and the fragile human body inside a political machine. There was another layer, too. Medieval rulers were not only treating pain, they lived inside a culture that connected medicine with morality, religion, and destiny. A sick ruler could be interpreted as a warning. A weak body could become a symbol. A troubled mind could become a weapon in the mouths of enemies. So relief was never just relief. It protected the ruler's image, his legitimacy, and sometimes his survival. But every solution carried a shadow. Remedies that calmed could also dull judgment. Wine that gave courage could encourage excess. Medicine that promised balance could create new problems when used too often. Medieval people saw the effects, but not the full mechanisms. They trusted tradition, authority, and the confidence of the physician standing beside the bed. And in a world where pain was common and choices were limited, a dangerous comfort could still look like wisdom. That is the uncomfortable truth. The throne did not sit above the medical limits of its age. It sat inside them. A peasant had folk remedies. A monk had monastery medicine. A noble had trained physicians. A ruler had the richest version of the same uncertain world. The crown bought better access, not modern certainty. And that makes medieval power feel more human. Behind the gold and stone were headaches, wounds, stomach pain, sleeplessness, grief, fear, and the loneliness of command. They held courts while hurting. They made decisions while tired. They appeared calm while carrying private storms. The cup in the ruler's hand becomes a symbol of that contradiction. Power, but also need. Ceremony, but also weakness. Control, but also dependence. And perhaps that is why this story still feels strangely modern. Today the crowns are different, the palaces are different, the remedies are different. But the pressure to appear strong, calm, successful, and untouched by fear has not disappeared. The medieval ruler's palace was extreme, but the human problem was familiar. How do you keep appearing strong when you are not? For kings and queens, the answer was often hidden in rituals of wine, medicine, and private treatment. For their courts, it was protected by silence. And for history, it leaves behind a quieter truth than battles and crowns usually reveal. Power does not erase human weakness. Sometimes it simply gives weakness better rooms to hide in. So the next time we imagine a medieval ruler raising a cup in a candlelit hall, we should not see only celebration. We should see a human being carrying a kingdom on a body that could ache, shake, fear, and fail. Because behind many medieval thrones, there was not only ambition, there was pain, there was pressure, there was the desperate need to appear unbreakable. And sometimes the secret of the crown was not hidden in a castle wall, a battlefield, or a royal seal. It was waiting quietly inside the cup.